Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting edition of Chromatographic, the show in which I, Matt the Game Boy, take you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy colour library, one card at a time. It's time to wrap up MayForward with Sabrina Spooked. Despite John Beck's assurance that he could find a publisher for Shantae, the year ticked on without Wayforward Technologies finding anyone to take Shantae to market. That's not to say there wasn't interest in Shantae. The gaming press at the time certainly saw promise in the title, with IGN and multiple other outlets running stories on the game. According to Matt Bozon, it's not that publishers couldn't see promise in the game either, it's just that the game's expensive cartridge meant that nobody was willing to take the risk on a game without a proven IP character, especially when it wasn't a male protagonist. Determined to finish and release the game, the Wayforward Pocket team took on more licensed work to keep the lights on, and kept that half-genie heroine alive. Having already proven themselves to Simon & Schuster with Sabrina Zapped, the Pocket team began to create a Sabrina sequel that expanded upon the concepts of the original game, called simply Sabrina Spooked. Released in late 2001, both in the US and Europe, Sabrina Spooked sees you once again take control of a young, animated Sabrina Spellman. But this time, it's not your classmates you're saving, but Sabrina's aunts Hilda and Zelda. The two have been placed under a spell by the genie in the Spellman's magical cookie jar, Spooky, so it's up to Sabrina and Salem to stop him. Much like the first game, this will require Sabrina to traverse 4 worlds with 4 levels apiece, being a boss battle in between it in order to progress to the next world. While Zapped saw the player searching locations based in reality, the concept of Spooky's dream world really freed up the Pocket team to go all out with their level and enemy design. Whereas the first game had you saving Sabrina's classmates in order to unlock the end of level exit, in Spooked, your goal is to collect 3 gemstones scattered around each stage instead. This seemingly small change allows for unique enemies in place of the animals found in Zapped, but also allows the player to simply jump on their heads to dispatch them. The most beneficial change of setting this game in a dream world, however, is how free the Pocket team became in creating breathtaking worlds for these enemies to inhabit. These stages often feel like love letters to the games the team was clearly inspired by, with some levels just feeling Konami or Capcom-esque, right down to the third world, Jewel Cave, being a straight-up Super Metroid parody, with some parts of the levels echoing iconic Metroid moments, not to mention the whole world looking like Brinstar. It's even got Wayforward-style space pirates. What's not to love? Returning from the previous Sabrina outing are its Salem the Cat Morph Ball, still controlled by the player after pressing select to switch to him, as well as the concept of 4 powers for the player to collect in order to gate their progress. The Bubble and Crush spells from Zapped carry over into this new adventure, while the Hover Jump and Teleport spells are replaced with a Whirlwind and Tiny spell. Whirlwind does what it says on the tin, allowing you to morph into a Tasmanian Devil-style tornado to kill enemies and break blocks, while the Tiny spell shrinks Sabrina so she can access areas even Salem can't get into. Both are fun little additions to the game, though you'll have very little use for either of them outside of puzzle solving. Despite how Metroid this level-based power-up system can feel, Bozon claims that it's actually inspired in part by Pocket Bomberman, which the team had been playing at the time. You can also still find gift boxes scattered around the stages containing hearts to refill Sabrina's health, some extra lives, as well as stars for her powered-up attack. Instead of being a powerful zap here, however, collecting stars in Spooked will allow Sabrina to fire a projectile that, for me, also feels like Samus's wave beam. Either way, it's infinitely useful in dispatching foes, especially when you're low on health. Another thing Spooked improves upon from the original Sabrina game is its difficulty level. While you're not going to necessarily have too much trouble with the game, it is finally at a stage where I think you'll see a continue screen or 2 if you're not careful. Fortunately, continues are still unlimited, and the password system also makes a return here, meaning you're going to get by just fine. The one thing I do think is a little disappointing in Spooked, however, is the boss battles against Spooky. You might remember me praising the boss battles in the previous game, but unfortunately here they're actually a lot easier than in Zapped, which is a shame. Gone are the patterns to memorise. Instead, you're just quickly jumping on Spooky's head to move along with the adventure. The sprite work is of course still great, but I just wish there was a little more to the encounters. Oh well, I can't have everything, I guess. But let's be clear. This is the biggest flaw in an otherwise solid game. Sure, the potential of falling to your death into a pit trap from a high place still persists. The music is a mixed bag, and the story, while a little funnier than the first game, isn't the real draw here. Instead, what you'll get from Spooked is an incredibly tight gameplay experience that not only improves upon its predecessor in almost every way, but it's an absolute joy to play and look at. As with the first game, my biggest complaint is that there's simply not more of it. And let's be honest, when that's my biggest critique of a title, I think it's fair to say that Sabrina Spooked deserves to be placed on that same pedestal that the last two Wayforward Game Boy releases, Wendy Every Which Way, and of course Shantae are. While this may still be up for debate, I guarantee you, Game Boys and Girls, it definitely deserves a place in your Game Boy collection. And that brings us to the end of another episode and MayForward, Game Boys and Girls. Hope you enjoyed. That's not to say we've seen the last of Wayforward on this channel, but I'll be back again next week with an original Game Boy title. And a huge thank you, as always, to Matt Bozon and everyone at Wayforward. Until then, no Game Boys and Girls, game on.